Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Rajneesh and this episode is about how to synchronize the user information between a Windows server and an IPA server. Both of them are directory servers, both have their internal directory servers or LDAP servers, both have the internal NTP server, DNS server, and key distribution centers. But there is still a lot of difference the way they store the user details. For example, if we talk about a particular user in Linux, he should belong to a POSIX account class, or group should belong to POSIX group object class, and it has certain extra attributes which is like UID, group ID, which are not present in Active Directory user. So IPA provides us a plugin which is WinSync, which takes care of modifying the entries which are replicating from Windows Server to IPA server. Because if we add a user in Windows Server, he should be added certain extra attributes corresponding to POSIX account and POSIX group. So WinSync plugin takes care of that particular issue. Okay, and that is fine. So in this episode, we will understand how to synchronize a Windows server and an IPA server. If we talk about the creation of user, the synchronization or replication happens only in one direction. If you create a user in Windows server, it will be replicated to the Linux machine or the IPA server. But if you create a user on free IPA or IPA server, it won't propagate to Windows server. That's why it's known as one-way synchronization of the addition of user. If we are talking about any kind of modification, whether you are modifying a user password or locking or unlocking of a user account or other details related to phone number, mobile number, or his other details, so they get synchronized in both the directions. If you modify on Windows AD, they get modified to IPA server. If you modify on IPA, they get propagated to Windows 2008 server. So the user information is completely synchronized between the IPA and Windows server. The only difference is if you add a user in Windows, it will propagate to Linux, but addition of a user on IPA won't propagate to Windows. Other thing is, if we are talking about this environment, there is only the user information that is propagating or synchronizing between these two environments. No information related to the group, related to machines or group policies will be replicating between them. Features. So only critical user attributes including passwords, lockouts are synchronized between these two environments or between these two directory servers. Only user information is synchronized. Replication agreements. If we are talking about the replication with the 389 directory server, with some other 389 directory server or Active Directory server, this is a kind of agreement that happens between the two directory servers that define when should the replication happen, what all attributes should be replicated. So this is what is defined in replication agreement. Modifications are bidirectional. You modify a user detail in IPA, they'll be propagating to Windows. If you modify the details in Active Directory, they'll be modified to IPA. But the creation of user is unidirectional, that is from Active Directory to IPA only. If you want, there are certain parameters that can be modified to make the replication happen in one direction only, and the synchronization operation happens every 5 minutes. Okay, if you are talking about the synchronization or the replication between Windows and an IPA server, we use the word synchronization rather than replication because this is the synchronization of only user details. So synchronization operation happens every 5 minutes, and password sync is effective immediately as soon as you modify the password. Now, coming on to the lab, before lab, I'll uh, like you to understand one more thing. Here we are talking about two different environments. All the Linux machine or Solaris or Unix machines are going to authenticate against IPA server. All the Windows based machines are going to authenticate against Windows 2008 server Active Directory. There could be a replication with other Windows server, and if we are talking about IPA, we already have replication between IPA and IPA2 in multimaster, so the information is always replicated between the IPA environment and between the Windows environment. Okay. Windows clients are authenticating against Active Directory, Linux clients are authenticating against IPA. One thing that is to be noted is the realm or the Kerberos realm. We are keeping it different for both the environments. Reason is when a client is trying to authenticate against a particular realm, he is using the DNS service record to identify which is the server or which is the KDC server corresponding to it. In case we are using the same realm labs.local in both the environments and a Linux client tries to resolve the service record of labs.local, he may resolve it from the Windows server or it may point to a Windows AD server, and finally Linux client will not be able to authenticate. The same may happen for Windows machine. He may get the service record for the KDC to point to Linux or IPA server. So finally the authentication will not happen. Okay. For the authentication to work, Windows machine should always authenticate against Active Directory and Linux machine should always authenticate against IPA server. To remove the confusion, what we are going to do is we are going to use different realms for both the environments. Windows environments will be using ad.labs.local as a realm, and for Linux environment this is going to be labs.local. The only reason is to prevent the confusion between the clients so that they always authenticate against Linux if they are in Linux environment, and they always authenticate against Active Directory in case they are Windows clients. Okay, so coming on to the lab. Okay, so here we have our Windows 2008 server, and here we have IPA and IPA2 which are already getting replicated with each other. Okay, let me open a remote desktop connection with the Windows server, and the first thing that I need to do is I need to install and configure Active Directory domain controller services into it. So first thing I'll do is I'll add a role. It says admin account should have strong password, network settings, static IP address. That is already fine. So first thing we are going to do is we are going to install Active Directory domain services. It will install its dependencies which are .NET framework. Click on next, click on next and install. So it will install Active Directory domain services and .NET framework. First part is installation of Active Directory, and secondly we are going to configure the domain controller on it. Okay, so installation is completed. The second part is to configure it. So to configure it, we are going to run dc promo command, click on next. Next, it asks you whether you want to attach it to an existing forest or to create a new domain in a new forest. So we want a new domain, and if you are talking about your existing environment, it would already have its own domain and forest. FQDN, this is important. As we already discussed, we are going to use a different realm for it, which is going to be ad.labs.local. Select it, click on next. Forest functional level, let's keep it to the latest, that is 2008 R2, and click on next. So it's trying to search out for the DNS services, whether they are already configured on the server. If not, it is going to install and configure DNS service on this Active Directory domain controller. Okay, select additional options for this domain controller, that is DNS, which is fine. Do you want to continue? Yes. Next, this is the directory service restore mode admin password in case you are rebooting it in restore mode. Admin at 123, click on next. Next, and now the DNS is getting installed. Here you can see the other details. The NetBIOS name for the domain is AD. So the user with which you will be logging into this machine or any machine which is attached to this Active Directory domain controller is AD/username. And after the installation of every role, you need to reboot the Windows server. So it's creating the directory partition for the configuration. May take a couple of more seconds. Okay, so AD installation is completed, finish, and now restart. In the meantime, when this machine is restarting, we can do one thing: IPA replica manage list. This is the command which displays you all the machines inside the replication topology. So this includes the server itself, which is IPA, and the remote servers with which it has the agreements. Taking some time. Really taking more than expected time. Do I have the admin TGT? Yes, I already have. Shouldn't take much time. Any VM that can be shut down? It's taking too much of time. I would like to see what the error is. Because due to some reason this is slow. IPA replica manage list. Okay, so here is the directory manager's password that it just asked me. It displays we have two servers in master mode, so it's multi-master between IPA and IPA2. Just to confirm, you can add an entry. Test 1234. Okay, it says your Kerberos ticket is expired, so I'll just key in it admin. This is pretty slow. I think I'll have to shut down one of the machines. This machine is pretty slow. Test 1234. Let me just cancel it. Uptime. So here you can see that it has some load on it and it has a single processor, so that's the reason. Because these are the VMs not capable of handling the load, that's the only reason why you are feeling slowness in it. Okay, so here it creates a new user and I would like to run the command IPA user show test 1234. This is just to make sure that the replication is working fine between these two servers, IPA and IPA2. So knet admin. Before running any command that uses IPA, it's good if you just get the ticket for admin user. Come on. Okay, here you can see that the user has now been propagated. Test 1234 I created on IPA is not available in IPA 2. It simply means that they are getting replicated. Fine. So I just now log in into Windows 2008 server because the NetBIOS name is admin, so I'll have to use NetBIOS name is AD, so I'll use AD. Administrator admin at 123. So on Windows, first part is completed, which is the installation and configuration of Active Directory Domain Controller corresponding to the fqdn ad.labs.local. The second part that we are going to do is to support for TLS or SSL, we need to install Certification Authority on this Windows server. So I'll just select Active Directory Certificate Service and click on Next. Next. Certification Authority. Next. So it's going to be Enterprise CA with its own root CA, and create a new policy. Next. 5 years is good for me. You can increase if you want. Click on Next and click on Install. In the meantime, IPA.labs, okay, this is installed. Let me configure the networking. To use the next DNS server as 192.168.1.204, which is our IPA server. Close. And now I'll open ipa.labs.local. Okay, ping is fine. ipa.labs.local cannot open. Okay, maybe the Samba service is not yet started on it. Okay, Samba is not yet installed actually. uh, the reason I am creating it, it's not actually required. The only reason I am creating it is to share some files between IPA server and Windows server. You may even not install it at all. I need to transfer the certificates between these two machines, which can be done even through SCP. Okay, seems to be very slow. WinSCP. I create a session with win 2008.ad. Okay. There are two options. The second option is okay. I create a shared folder and give permission, write permissions on it. If I try to open this shared folder, win 2008.ad.labs.local, okay, here I can see it. So let's just forget about it because it's getting very slow. And let's create a SFTP session with IPA.labs.local. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do is I have installed Certification Authority on Windows Server. I have installed Active Directory Domain Controller. Just click on close, and the first thing that needs to be done is going to Admin Tools, Certification Authority. Let us export the Certification Authority, View Certificate, Details, and copy it to some file. Format should be base 64 encoded. Click on Next. On the desktop, under AD shared, mark it as adca.cer and save it. So what we have done is we have exported the CA certificate of Windows to this shared folder, and the main objective is to send this folder to the IPA server. So I just copy it to the ipa.labs.local. The second thing that I need to do is I need to copy the CA certificate of IPA server to Windows 2008, and it can be found in /etc IPA ca.crt. So I just copy it here. Okay, or I just cancel it. Now coming on to Windows, in the AD shared folders I can see this is the CA corresponding to the certification authority of IPA. I will install this certificate, place all the certificates in the following tree, which is Trusted Root Certification Authority. Click on OK, Next, and Finish. Now this machine or Windows 2008 trusts the certification authority of IPA server. So we are done with Windows part. Coming on to IPA server part, we should trust the certification authority of Windows 2008 server. So /etc open LDAP CA certs. Let's copy the certificate which we copied in root to CA certs and etc IPA ca.crt, which is corresponding to IPA server. So we have copied the certificates in etc open LDAP CA certs. We rehash it to create the appropriate symlinks, and we modify it to use TLS CA cert dir as /etc open LDAP CA certs and write and quit. Fine. Now I trust the certificates placed in this folder, and in this folder I have the certificate CA certificate corresponding to IPA as well as Windows 2008 server. So now I should be able to make TLS based queries to the LDAP server on Windows 2008. But before that, I would like to reboot it. Okay, so what we just did was okay, this is IPA server and this is Windows 2008 server. I installed Active Directory Domain Controller and Active Directory Certificate Services. It has its own certification authority, it has its own certification authority. In case I want to do LDAP search over TLS to Windows 2008, I should trust the CA certificate of Windows on this machine. And in case I want to do LDAP search over TLS to IPA from Windows, Windows should trust the CA. Okay, sorry. In case I am doing LDAP search from Windows to IPA, so Windows machine should trust the CA certificate of IPA. So logically, what I did, the CA certificate of IPA is now trusted by Windows 8 server, and Windows CA is trusted by IPA. Both trust each other. Till now, if we talk about IPA, we have only modified the certificate corresponding to LDAP or Open LDAP client. Let's make sure whether the LDAP server is now working fine on Windows 2008. LDAP search -x plain text or login LDAP win 2008.ad.labs.local -d bind dn cn administrator comma cn equal to users comma dc equal to ad comma dc equal to labs comma dc equal to local -w -b dc equal to ad comma dc equal to labs comma dc equal to local. Okay, can't contact LDAP server. Am I able to ping it? Okay, it doesn't know this host. One thing is I can add a DNS entry, and the other part that I can do as of now is I can add an entry 192.168.1.206 as win 2008.ad.labs.local inside it. It should actually be present because in case the DNS resolution fail, it should be able to resolve. However, the same should be added in IPA server that we'll add later. So LDAP search over plain LDAP is working fine. By using double Z, make sure that the TLS queries are also fine. So this confirms that the TLS connection from this IPA server to Windows is working fine. Good. Now let me just log in into Windows 2008 server. And before I set up a replication agreement between these two, I just wanted to make sure that the users which were already present in Active Directory are migrated or not migrated. So what I am going to do is I am going to create a new user in Active Directory before the replication starts. So under the users, new user, let's give it name before sync. If you want him to change, or you can just uncheck it, click on next. Cannot set the password because the password doesn't meet complexity requirement. Okay, click on next and finish. Now there is one user before sync that you have created before setting up a replication agreement between them. Okay, and now let us set up a replication agreement from IPA server to Windows 2008. For this, the command is IPA replica manage connect minus minus win sync minus minus help. Because I was not aware of the syntax for it, so I just used minus minus help. Connect is to connect to the Windows 2008 server to set up a replication between them. Minus minus WinSync says that this is going to be a sync agreement with the Windows server, not a Linux IPA server. Okay. Bind DN is the user that I'll be using to log in into Windows 2008 server to connect to the LDAP server. Cn equal to administrator, comma Cn equal to users, comma dc equal to ad, dc equal to labs, comma dc equal to local, and minus minus bind pw is the password of this administrator. This administrator that is trying to connect to Windows 2008 server. So this is bind password. Fine. We have already specified it as a WinSync. And now the CA certificate, root adca.ser, and one option is pass sync. So this is the password that will be used by the pass sync application so that it synchronizes the passwords between the Windows and this IPA server, between 2008 server and between the Active Directory server and the domain controller server of IPA. So what this command is going to do is it's going to create a user for pass sync that will be used by the application that we are going to install on Windows to keep the password synced between them. And finally, win 2008.ad.labs.local. This is the name of the server with which the replication agreement is being created. And I just press enter. Let's wait for the output. In the meantime, there is one more application. Mhm. Which I need to send to the Windows 2008 server, which is 389 pass sync, which is available on the pass sync or the 389 directory server's URL or the website where you can access it. This is the application that we are going to install on Windows 2008 directory server to keep the passwords synced between IPA domain controller and the Active Directory domain controller. Okay, it says insufficient access. Okay, uh, bind dncn equal to administrator, comma cn equal to users, dc equal to ad, dc equal to labs, comma dc equal to local. All looks fine. And here it works. Sometime it doesn't work in first time. I didn't modify anything and it worked this time. Windows pass sync entry exists, not resetting password. The user for pass sync is uid equal to pass sync. So this is the user that is created on 389 directory server and will be used on Windows 2008 server to sync the passwords between them. It added a new sync agreement, waiting for it to become ready. Replication update in progress. Replica acquired successfully. Incremental update started. Agreement is ready. Starting replication. So all is fine. IPA manage uh, IPA replica manage and list. If you type this command, as we discussed previously, it's going to display all the servers with which this server has a replication agreement. So under the list you can see that Windows 2008 server is there and this is using a WinSync replication agreement. The other thing, IPA user show before sync. So this was the user that I created on Windows 2008 server before the application started. So I just wanted to make sure that all the users present in Windows 2008 servers have been migrated to the IPA server. And in the meantime, when okay, here you can see that before sync has now been synced from Active Directory to this IPA server. So this was just a sample. In case we have hundreds of users already present in it, all of these users will be migrated to IPA. So finally we have all the users now present on IPA. So one part is done. The second part is about the password synchronization. For password synchronization, what we are going to do is we are going to install an application 389 pass sync that we just discussed about and has been copied to this AD server. Double click on it, click on next, and it is going to ask you some details. Server name is ipa.labs.local. Make sure that it's resolvable. Fine. The port that we'll be using is 636. Username The username was provided to us over here when I was creating a sync agreement. Password is the one that I provided when I was creating a sync agreement. And search base, where do we have all the users? Users in which server? So this is talking about the users in a IPA server. So I'm not sure about the location. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do LDAP search -y GSS API to use my Kerberos credentials -h LDAP localhost GSS API authentication started, but I didn't specify base DN. DC equal to labs comma DC equal to local, UID equal to rcval or any other user. So here I can see the location of the users. So they all are present under CN equal to users and compat, and this is for compatibility purpose, and by default all users are present under CN equal to users accounts labs local. So we are using this one. The other part was for compatibility to provide support to the machines that don't support RFC 2307 BIS. So fine, we have entered all the details. I click on next and install. After the installation of password sync is completed, I'll reboot Windows 2008 server once again. Now this application is present on 389 directory server's website. You can see it. This is named as password sync, responsible for the synchronization of the password only. All the user information will be synced by the application agreement of IPA, but the password synchronization is taken care of by pass sync application. Publishing information. So the installation of 389 directory server happens at C drive, program files, 389ds, password synchronization, dir. And if we are talking about this application 389 directory server, this has its own database of trusted certification authority in this folder. So what we need to do is search util -d dot -i to import it from C drive, users, administrator, desktop, AD shared, and here we should see ca.crt. This is the certificate of IPA Certification Authority. We are going to name it as, this is a nickname, IPACA, and trusted arguments will be client and server certificates provided by this certification authority will be trusted. I think I missed something. Okay, the objective was to add -a. So with this cert util L -d dot, and here you can see that certification IPA Certification Authority is now trusted in it. It's taking more than expected time, so maybe some let it complete, or we can have a look into the logs also. Normally it doesn't take much time. C drive program files 389 ds password synchronization and pass sync. Ensure that your SSL is set up correctly. So that's what I have just done. Let it complete or let it fail. Using cert util we have already trusted our IPA Certification Authority. It's actually taking much more than what is expected. Maybe we added some wrong entry. ipa.labs.local is pingable. That is my main question. Let me reinstall it. So moving on to the desktop, I just double click on it once again, click on next, repair errors, so I think it repaired. Do you want to modify the things? Hostname was ipa.labs.local, port is fine, UID pass sync, all looks fine. Click on next and install. Finish. So installation seems fine. Let me have a look into the services. But before that, I would like to reboot it once again before it starts working. Okay, it worked fine, but I would like to reboot it. And after the reboot is completed, I would like to add one more entry and will make sure that the entry is replicated to IPA. And would lock an account over there and we'll make sure that it's logged over here, and the same in the reverse direction. That makes sure that all is working fine. Okay, so the present status, of the console is it's not yet booted. Applying settings. After the reboot, the first thing we need to make sure that 389 directory server is working fine. Okay, applying computer settings. Okay, so it's booted up. Now we'll be adding one more user to it. Start admin tools, users and computers. Right click, new user. After sync, surname. After sync, click on next and finish. Now there is one more user that I just created, and let me make sure whether that's yet visible or not. And in the meantime, the important thing that I have to look into is the services. Control panel. In case this pass sync is not working, your passwords will not get synchronized. View local services and pass sync, and here you can see that the service is working fine. You can see the logs of it in this file. Service is running but no yet any entries. Moving back after sync. Okay, maybe it's visible in 5 minutes, so what we can do is IPA replica, manage, force sync minus minus from equal to win 2008.ad.labs.local. So what this command is going to do is it's going to force sync the user details right now. Otherwise, by default, it would have to wait for around 5 minutes to get these entries synced over here. So here it's done, and I just type the command IPA user show after sync, and here I can see the details of this user. So it simply says the user that was created on Windows 2008 propagated over here. The second thing I would like to do is let me lock some user account. So I just disabled after sync account. I am force syncing from 2008, and here it says account is disabled. So and so I think that is fine. So this displays how the replication or the synchronization happens between Windows 2008 server and an IPA server. Thanks for viewing the video. Have a great day.